Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be, and thank you for choosing to watch this post about monsters in our midst. It is about the history of modern physics and how it relates to some recent news about Jeffrey Epstein. I bet you didn't know that he played a rather significant role in the physics community at the very top level. When I think about history and about the stars of modern physics, I think about Richard Feynman and his womanizing in the 1970s. Then I read more recent news about how Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire philanthropist, funded and supported groups of male top scientists, inviting them to parties on his island estate, while simultaneously surrounding himself with an entourage of young, often underage women who would be pimped out or exchanged with his friends. When I see this, I conclude that very little has changed since the bad old days when women were treated like children and sex objects. And I wonder what it is about grown men who prefer the company of underage women. And let's be honest, underage women is just a polite way to say children. From an article about what it was like to be part of Epstein's circle of top scientists, I learned that almost every science scholar whom Epstein was said to have courted or supported is a man. And the names are those of the most prominent people in the field. People who are pop scientists, people who are star professors at top academic institutions. We have Lawrence Krauss, a person who was recently sanctioned for sexual misconduct at his university. We have Marvin Minsky, we have Roger Schank, Gregory Benford, George Church, Murray Gell-Mann, Stephen Jay Gould, David Gross, Stephen Hawking, Danny Hillis, Gerard de Hooft, Stephen Koslin, Jaron Lanier, Seth Lloyd, Martin Novak, Oliver Sacks, Lee Smolin, Robert Trivers, Frank Wilczek, and more. Truly, the list of men goes on and on. Among the only women on the list that this particular reporter was able to find was Harvard's Anne Harrington, who took a grant from Epstein around 1998. So, in another article, I learned that the most recent Nobel Prize recipients, Kip Thorne and James Peebles, are also on a list of people who were invited to his exclusive parties, at which these top scientists were shown the money and women Epstein flaunted. And one would conclude that once you see that sort of thing, you want to have it too. Thus, we corrupt our best minds and turn them into so much garbage. Epstein's fantasy was of collecting 20 women on his New Mexico estate and using them to spread high-quality DNA, as in his own. And this way of thinking is emblematic of the greed driving today's cultural economy. A greed which has infected these community of top scientists who've been exposed to Epstein's decadence, criminal decadence. I can't even bring myself to say it's not criminal decadence. That's just a polite way of saying child abuse. Just absolutely disgusting and depraved. So, are these men truly representative, these top scientists, Are they truly representative of our best minds? I don't think so. They are merely the men who have been able to rise the highest on the currents of greed for attention, whereas the best minds are more likely hidden away and uncorrupted by the spotlight. You won't find them on a podium announcing a fabulous new discovery. Their words will be whispered in hallways or in internet back channels where greedy people will claim the ideas as their own and use them to grasp for fame and attention. Feynman, looking back in history, he exemplified this culture. He was a showman and he liked attention. His colleague, Murray Gell-Mann, was initially charmed by him, but soon stopped working with him because Feynman had the tendency to take the fruits of their conversations and write them up as his own intellectual property. Nevertheless, Gell-Mann was also easily seduced by power, often invited to Epstein's exclusive parties for top scientists. These were the representatives and remnants of the elite responsible for powerful pursuits like the Manhattan Project. Today, the mythology of the Manhattan Project is propagated in a uniquely, deliberately, overly complex way by people like Leonard Susskind, a protege of Feynman. By many in the physics community, he is seen as a sort of harmless kook who is drawn to rather extreme interpretations of modern physics and sweeping generalizations based on flimsy mathematical approximations. Why wouldn't a man like Feynman choose a man like Susskind as his heir apparent? An extremely cynical perspective is that if you secretly want physics to self-destruct because of the evils of the Manhattan Project, just give someone like Susskind a crown of legitimacy and watch all of the crazy young narcissists flock to his throne, thereby creating an intellectual black hole, or trash dump if you don't believe in black holes. This perspective is, of course, highly speculative and, by most measures, a bit crazy. What I know for sure is that Richard Feynman came of age during the Manhattan Project. He was just a baby physicist while it was all going on, and the politics of the time shaped his character. He understood that physicists had a responsibility to pass on a legacy while simultaneously obscuring the knowledge needed to make bombs of unimaginable power. Autobiographies like Surely You Must Be Joking, Mr. Feynman, have promulgated an image of heroic, otherworldly minds of the Manhattan Project, while obscuring the fact that men like Feynman were not good guys. They conducted terrifying nuclear tests which traumatized and injured those who participated. And in his personal life, he was a pickup artist who used college campuses to find women who were less than half his age. He would lie, coerce, and then move on to the next victim. While in class, he drew pictures of his female students naked. This was not just something he did a few times. This was his lifestyle. He was, by many measures, an egomaniacal child who fell into a violent rage when his wife disturbed him while he was playing his bongo drums. And this is the sort of man that physics students today are encouraged to idolize. Entrusting such a man with the physics legacy was surely deliberate, as is the unofficial policy of corruption, deliberate obfuscation, and compartmentalization within the community of top scientists. This may sound like a conspiracy theory, and I guess it is. I started to think in this direction after watching the famous video of Feynman giving the most meandering non-answer to a simple question about how magnets work. I felt like it gave me a window into his character. The video is ridiculous because Feynman knew darn well how magnets work. He just didn't feel like giving a clear answer. confusing people while making them feel that they've learned something powerful and terribly complex is a subtle and useful art, and Feynman was a master. In fact, he is the one who invented the Rube Goldberg machines, which are used to drive the entire high-energy particle physics industry. You know, there's a whole city based on these ideas in CERN. I believe that obfuscating was a game to him, and that he probably believed he was doing it for the greater good. I think he believed that physics must be made absurd to save everyone from its destructive power. And I wonder if the corrupting influence of men like Jeffrey Epstein served a similar purpose. Thank you for listening to me this far. I know that such speculative reasoning is distasteful to most, but I think it does provide some valuable food for thought about the forces which shape the physics community today. This was, of course, just a picture of a subset of the American physics community and not necessarily representative of the community worldwide. So, my subsequent posts will be far less speculative and will rely far less on these sorts of cultural issues. So please stay tuned for the next videos. They will get better. Until then,